So if you remember earlier, I said there were two kinds of TruLegacy Soffit. One of them is ribbed, where we call it parallel soffit, where the ribs run parallel to the wall. The second one is flat, no ribs at all. Simulates a plywood soffit. And what we're going to do is show you here how to make one continuous piece of soffit for this 26-foot run across the front of this porch. What we're going to do is we're going to put it in the brake. We're going to slit it to the proper width so we have one continuous 26-foot piece. So I'm going to unroll this here, and Roger's going to help me, and we're going to slit this down. As Roger feeds this into the brake, he gets it set to just the right width for the porch overhang, locks it down, and then we're going to score it with a utility knife, just like you would slit metal for any other purpose. Because the roll of coil is longer than the brake, obviously we're going to have to do it in sections. It puts a relief cut in it right to where the first brake will go. So as Roger bends this up, I'm going to have to tilt the coil also so as not to kink it. And I'm now holding the section of the coil that's already been slit to the right size. He takes the one that still needs to be slit, rolls it out, slides it in the brake, and gets it marked. Just repeat the same process here. We've slit this down to the right width, but when you install a one-piece soffit, you always have to have your color be on the inside of the roll. So as I unroll this, Roger's going to roll it back up, putting the colored side on the inside of our roll. That way, as we roll it out on the walkboard, the color will be down. And we're ready to go. Now we're going to install continuous soffit on this porch. As I said earlier, there are two forms of TruLegacy soffit. One is ribbed, the other one is smooth. The smooth one comes on a coil. You just saw us slit this coil down to the proper width on the brake. Now we're going to go ahead and run this one piece of soffit across this 26-foot porch. So as I slowly unroll the coil, Roger's going to feed it into the soffit receiver. The trick is I need to hold this as high as I can to help him feed it in. Now that we get about 12 or 15 feet rolled out, Roger's going to go ahead and put a piece of fascia lock on. The fascia lock's what holds the outside edge of the soffit to the subfascia. It will also hold the piece of capping material on that covers the subfascia in the final installation. Just going to tack it in place for now until we get this whole run of soffit up. As you can see, I don't want to get too far ahead of them and get a kink. As you see, we just put up one continuous piece of soffit. There are no fasteners that hold that piece of soffit on. It slides in the receiver piece on the freeze board and the fascia lock on the outside edge. What that does is allows for expansion and contraction and it eliminates buckling. Okay, I'm going to show you here how to measure for the fascia. The fascia comes in 6, 8, and 10 inches. What we want to do here is determine the right size of the fascia for this application. So I'm going to go up just underneath the T of the drip edge, start my measurement there, and then I'll come all the way down to just below this section of the fascia lock, and that's where we're going to cut. So I've got, in this case, I've got 6 3/4 inches is where I'm going to cut the fascia off at. So obviously we need to start with an 8-inch piece of fascia in order to have 6 3/4 left. Okay, so as you can see, as I said a moment ago, we're going to start with an 8-inch piece of fascia. That face of that metal measures 8 inches there, but we're going to cut it down to 6 3/4. So I'll put my pencil mark right there at 6 3/4. We're going to put this in the brake and score it and cut it off right there. But before we do that, I just want to show you this. This little return here. You see how it looks like the shape of a J channel? that comes back up and meets the bottom side of the soffit. It's another reason why this is architecturally correct to true wood soffit, because on all wood soffits the soffit meets the fascia board up from the bottom like that. So you get a reveal after it's all been assembled, and you'll see it when we're all done in a minute. What we're going to do here is show you how to do an outside corner with the fascia, and he's simply going to notch it and fold it around the corner. So he's marked it back, and that's going to be his bend line, but he's got to cut away the reveal in order to get a bend. So he angle cuts the two ends of the fold so that the other piece of fascia will fit nicely over the top of it. Lays a speed square in there and he just bends it with his fingers. So we're going to go ahead and install this piece of fascia, and as you can see, just like with the soffit, we're going to start at one end and work our way down. So the idea is to tuck it behind the drip edge and push it up until the reveal that I showed you a moment ago is all the way tight to the bottom side of the soffit. Sometimes you have to kind of pry the drip edge away to get it up behind it there. Once it's behind the drip edge, it slides up and locks into the back side of the fascia lock. So this is a piece of fascia lock, and as you can see, the bottom flange has these tabs punched in it that leave a little shelf of metal coming at me. And what happens is when the fascia lock snaps over that, it gets hooked on those tabs, and that's what holds the fascia in place. That's why that fascia is staying up there without any fasteners in it. The back side of that fascia is hemmed, so the hem is catching the tab, and that's what's holding it in place. It also allows the fascia to expand and contract without rippling. It's a fastener-less fascia system. So here's our next piece of fascia, and Roger's going to notch this also so that it laps behind the piece of fascia that we just put up. Reason is we want to have all the seams facing away from the entrance to the house. So in this case, we're going to notch the piece that's on the ground going up. If you're going to have your joints face the other way, obviously you notch the piece that you put up before you put a piece from the ground. It's just the opposite. You can see how I can feed this piece behind the piece that's already up. Because the entrance to the house is over there, we want to have the joints facing this way.